Okay, picture this. It's February 2026. The Winter Olympics are kicking off in Italy, and you're watching some guy in a spandex suit that costs more than my car throw himself down a mountain at 80 miles an hour. It's glorious, right? But here's the thing. Exactly 110 years ago, on that exact same mountain, a bunch of teenagers were doing the same thing, but they weren't chasing gold medals. They were running for their lives. Welcome to the war on skis, when soldiers invented the Olympics. By the time we're done here, you're never going to look at the Winter Games the same way again. We're going to talk about cities carved inside glaciers, avalanches weaponized on purpose, and how a group of soldiers with wooden planks strapped to their feet accidentally created the modern biathlon. Seriously, the only reason we have the Winter Olympics today is because of what happened on these peaks in 1916. So grab a hot drink, because this story, it gets cold. So, let's set the scene. It's 1915. World War I is raging, and Italy decides to attack the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Now, usually when you invade a country, you look for a nice flat valley or a road. Italy? No. They looked at the Dolomites, these massive, jagged limestone teeth jutting 12,000 feet into the air, and said, yeah, let's fight there. It was the vertical front, and honestly, it was strategic suicide. I mean, just think about the physics for a second. You're a general, right? And you want to put a cannon on top of a mountain. A cannon that weighs, 5,000 kilograms? And there are no roads. There are no trucks. There is only gravity, and gravity hates you. They literally had to haul artillery pieces up sheer cliffs using ropes, pulleys, and pure, unadulterated stubbornness. To solve this, they built the teleferice, these terrifying cable car systems. And I'm not talking about the nice gondolas you take to the ski lodge with heated seats. These were creaky, iron death traps strung across abysses. Soldiers would ride in these little wooden baskets thousands of feet in the air, often while being shot at. If the cable snapped, which, spoiler alert, happened a lot, there was no parachute. Just a very long, very quiet drop. And we can't forget the MVPs of this war, the mules. The Alpini loved these animals more than their officers. There are stories of soldiers sharing their wine rations with their mules just to keep them warm. One guy wrote in his diary that when his mule fell off a cliff, he cried harder than when his sergeant died. I mean, fair enough, the mule probably didn't yell at him for not polishing his boots. Speaking of hauling heavy stuff upstairs, I complain when I have to carry groceries to the second floor. These guys were carrying 100-pound shells up a mountain at 30 below zero. I want to know, what is the physically hardest thing you've ever had to carry? Drop a comment below. If anyone says, my teammates in ranked, you get a gold star. So, it's 1916. The Austrians are stuck on the Marmolada Glacier. It's the highest peak in the Dolomites. It's freezing, they're exposed to Italian snipers, and they are miserable. Enter Lieutenant Leo Handel. He's an engineer, and he looks at this giant block of ice and thinks, you know what? Why are we living on the ice? We should be living in it. This is where it gets sci-fi. Handel and his men start digging. They carve out a literal metropolis inside the glacier. They called it the Eisstadt, the city of ice. We're talking 12 kilometers of tunnels. They had barracks, a kitchen, a telephone exchange, and get this, a chapel carved out of solid ice. They were holding mass inside a glacier while the war raged above their heads. It was like a weird frozen submarine. The temperature was a constant 0 degrees, which, compared to the -30 outside, felt like a tropical vacation. They even named the tunnels after streets in Vienna. You could tell your buddy, hey, meet me at the corner of Ringstrasse and Kärntnerstrasse, and you'd just be standing in a blue hole in the Alps. It was genius. But ice moves. See, glaciers are basically slow-motion rivers. The Eisstadt was constantly moving downhill. Tunnels would warp, ceilings would lower. You'd go to sleep in your bunk and wake up 3 feet to the left. They had to constantly redig their own city just to keep it from crushing them. It's the ultimate maintenance nightmare. But the real enemy wasn't the ice or the Italians. It was the snow. December 1916, a freak weather system moves in. It rains in the valleys, but up on the peaks, it snows and snows and snows for days. We're talking 4 meters of fresh, heavy, wet snow sitting on top of a layer of dry ice. If you're a skier, you know exactly what that means. It's a loaded gun. On the Grand Pas summit, the Austrian commander, Captain Rudolf Schmidt, isn't stupid. He sees the snow piling up. He hears the mountain groaning. He writes to his superiors in the valley, basically begging, "Hey, we need to move. The mountain is going to fall on us." The reply? Hold your position, because in World War I, territory mattered more than common sense. December 13th, White Friday, 5:30 in the morning. 200,000 tons of snow decide to obey gravity all at once. It wasn't a slide, it was a bomb. The avalanche hit the Grand Pas barracks at highway speeds. It didn't just bury the buildings, it pulverized them. 300 men, gone in a heartbeat. Here's the darkest part. After this happened, both sides realized something terrifying. You didn't need to hit the enemy to kill them. You just had to hit the snow above them. Artillery officers started targeting snow cornices on purpose. They weaponized avalanches. By the end of that week, 10,000 men were dead, not from bullets, from snow. Fast forward 8 years. The war is over. The survivors go home, but they have this very specific, very intense set of skills. They know how to ski, shoot, and survive hell on earth. So when the first Winter Olympics happen in Chamonix in 1924, they don't just play hockey, they introduce a sport called military patrol. This wasn't biathlon as we know it. This was literally a war simulation. 4 guys, 1 officer, 1 NCO, 2 privates. They wore full military uniforms and carried 24-kilogram backpacks. That's 50 pounds. And here's my favorite rule. The officer carried a pistol but wasn't allowed to shoot. He just had to shout orders at the other guys. Classic management, right? And the targets? They weren't electronic plates. They shot at balloons from 150 meters away. Can you imagine? You just skied 30 kilometers with a rucksack full of rocks, and now you have to pop a balloon with a bolt-action rifle while your lieutenant screams at you? The Swiss won gold, probably because they were the only ones organized enough to not pop a lung. After the war, people got a little weirded out by military patrol because, it was too military. So they rebranded. They dropped the backpacks, ditched the officer, and kept the skiing and shooting. In 1960, it officially became the biathlon. But the DNA is still there. Every time they shoot, they're replaying a tactical ambush from 1916. But biathlon forgot one thing: the climbing. The Alpini didn't just ski on flat ground, they climbed vertical walls. Well, in 2026, that comes back. Ski Mountaineering, or Skimo, is making its Olympic debut in Bormio. And guess what? The movement, skinning up, transitioning, skiing down, is exactly what those soldiers did. We've come full circle. There's a ghostly footnote to this story. Because of climate change, the glaciers and the Dolomites are melting, and they are giving back what they took. Every summer, archaeologists find things: unsent letters, straw overshoes woven by prisoners of war to keep feet warm, and yes, bodies. Perfectly preserved soldiers, still wearing their uniforms, waiting for an order to retreat that never came. So when you watch the games in 2026 and you see those athletes racing in Bormio, just remember where you are. You're on the Stelvio. You're in the shadow of the 3 languages peak. You're watching a sport invented by boys who were trying to survive the worst conditions humanity has ever endured. The Olympics are about peace, sure, but their roots, they're planted deep in the snow of the White War. These athletes are the great-grandchildren of the Alpini, and in a way, every time they cross that finish line, they're finishing the race those soldiers started. Thanks for watching. If you liked this deep dive, you have to check out our video on the 100-year transmission. It turns out the screen you're watching this on was invented in a hat box in 1926. Seriously, click here to watch that, and I'll see you in the next one.